Hey there and welcome to the channel. You're watching The Light in My Library. So today we're going to be talking about Red Rising by Pierce Brown. So apparently this book came out like a decade ago, but I did not hear about it at all until like last year. So it's nice to find an entirely completed series that I can just sink my teeth into and read all at once. But I really have no idea how I missed this one. I think it might have gotten lost in the shuffle of all of the YA dystopian novels that were coming out about a decade ago, the Divergence and the Hunger Games, but I really do enjoy this book. Alright, down you go. And I'm excited to talk about it today. So, Red Rising is about the heavily stratified culture of the future in which all people are designated into colors: gold, red, gray, brown, pink, green, and the color that they are determines their place in society. With gold obviously being at the top. Sorry, the cat is messing with a cord, and so I'm looking at her. And red being at the very, very bottom. Our main character, Darrow, is a miner on Mars collecting H3, a chemical needed for terraforming the planets. The conditions are absolutely horrific for him and his family, and in an act of rebellion, his wife sings a forbidden song and is executed. This brings up one of the things that I want to talk about in this review, which is a little bit of a sensitive subject, but I do definitely want to mention it, which is that both in this book and in the next book, the author has a fridging both times. For those of you who don't know, fridging is unfortunately a trope, and it's the fact that it's a trope that it is controversial, in which a female character is killed off for the sake of moving forward the male character's plot arc. It's not that this happens in a story that is so controversial. It's the fact that it has become a trope and it dehumanizes the women, and it does not go the other way. There is not a trope of men getting killed off for the emotional plot of the female character. And so it's kind of a one-way street there, you see. I do not think that this is the most egregious fridging that I've ever seen in a book, as Io, Darrow's wife, our main character, actively makes the choice to commit an act of rebellion, knowing that the consequences of that act will be death. And so there is agency on Io's part in this, but that doesn't really excuse the fridging, and especially considering that there is another fridging in the next book, I feel like it might be a bad habit that Pierce Brown has. I'm not 100% certain, but as these are the only two books of the authors that I've read, but I am a little bit concerned about that. Aside from that, I also do need to give a content warning for this book. It is for mature audiences. I've seen a lot of people call it YA, which was surprising to me. I didn't see that until after I had read the book. And I would not call this book YA. The only thing YA about it is that the main character is 16, but that is considered a man in his society, a fully fledged adult, and he is married at 16. And if you ignore his age, there's nothing really YA about this book. Definitely a more simplistic writing style, but aside from that, it is a book for mature audiences, which brings us back to our content warning. A quick aside, if you're the kind of person who doesn't like content warnings, who thinks they're stupid, fuck yourself. I want to say that very clearly. If you're the kind of person who is gonna talk crap on a creator for including content warnings, don't watch my videos. I don't want you here. the simple fact of the matter is that there are people who have experienced trauma in their lives, and that would be triggered and caused emotional distress by reading things and by viewing things, and I wouldn't be doing my job as a reviewer if I failed to mention things which could potentially be triggering for people. I don't care about your stupid whatever you have to say about content warnings. Don't watch my videos if you don't like them. I'm only going to be doing them for a specific kind of content, but don't watch my videos if you don't like them. I just figured I needed to get that out there since this is the first content warning I've had to give for a book. And the content warning is as follows. There is discussion and enactment of rape in this book. This is probably, I mean, not that I'm monetized, but if I was monetized, this video would definitely be getting demonetized. So there is one character who it is discussed that he is enacting rapes, and then he is punished. And then there is another character who attempts rape, and that incident is discussed in detail. Not egregious or gross detail, but it is discussed explicitly. And so yeah, fair content warning to anybody out there. If that's the kind of thing that is triggering for you, I think you should maybe take a pass on this book. Now we'll get into the good things. I actually did very much enjoy this book. I enjoyed the brutality of it, and I enjoyed the nihilistic view of the world. Well, I don't know if nihilistic is the right word here. That would put it as grimdark, which it does dabble its toes into. But also there is an inherently optimistic view of the world on display in this book. It's more that the author is not afraid to acknowledge the truly dark things while also having hope. So, after those very heavy and hefty content warnings up front, not the kind of thing I like to talk about. I don't mind having it in my literature, but I feel that I would be remiss if I didn't mention all of those things. Let's hop into the review. So we're going to give this book let's say an 8 out of 10 for narrative style. This book is first person, which I honestly don't think is popular enough, or I wish that there were more of it. I do actually prefer to read books that are third person omniscient, but there is a certain flavor to first person that I actually get rather excited when I come across a first person book, just to shake up the monotony of reading too many third persons in a row. Also, I do particularly enjoy Darrow's voice as a character, and the growth that he goes through in this novel, I think, is very poignant and very earned. For plot, I'm going to give this book 6.5 out of 10. There's nothing truly original going on here in this plot, but it is a very well done thing of what it's trying to do. And speaking of plot, before we get into the full spoiler section, there is actually one more thing that I do want to mention about the plot. Let's give this book a 9 out of 10 for artistic flair. Something that I noticed as I read this is that almost every part in the book ends with there's a little bit of a small spoiler warning for the next 5 seconds. Every part in the book ends with a fake out death of the main character, and I just feel like that's if it was a side character every time, then it would come off as very trite and very, oh, come on. But because it's the main character and obviously he's going to survive, I feel like it's actually very well done. And it's not actually every single part, but it's most parts in the book, and with a fake out death of the main character. Just that fact that you know he's going to survive, it's kind of a page turner. You're like, how is he going to make it out of this one? I really enjoyed the way that it was done. It's not going to be the best thing for every person, but I enjoyed it. Spoiler warning over. We have some other things that I do want to talk about before we get on to the full spoiler section. So we're going to finish it up with a rating of 8 out of 10 stars overall. I do highly recommend this book, especially to people who maybe want to see something a little bit more from the YA dystopian genre. Although, full disclosure, I only read one of those books that came out post-Hunger Games, and it was actually Hunger Games, so I'm maybe not the best person to talk to about that specific subgenre, but I would definitely recommend this, especially if you did enjoy all of those books. It's a little bit of a darker, more gritty take on the subgenre from what I can tell. Let's see. Alright, so I did say before I get into the plot that I wanted to talk about the fact that a lot of people online have accused this book of being a Hunger Games ripoff. And not based on the fact that it's a YA dystopian, but actually reflective of the plot of Hunger Games. Luckily, Hunger Games is the one YA dystopian novel that I did actually read back in the day. And so I do feel like I can talk to this a little bit. And by that I mean that I 100% disagree, and you're wrong. Yeah, there is kind of an arena aspect going on with the plot. No real spoilers up ahead, just minor plot details. But it's entirely different in nature. It's not a one-to-one comparison, especially in the fact that in the case of Red Rising, this is not the lower class being pitted against each other for the entertainment of the upper class. This is the upper class at a school. And I think that there's a lot more comparisons that you could make to Ender's Game than you could to Hunger Games here. I feel like that's a much more apt comparison, and even still, in both instances, I don't think that you really have much ground to stand on as far as calling it a ripoff goes. Again, there's a lot more similarities between this and Ender's Game. There's the different houses, and they compete against each other, and there's a team leader. That's much more in line with what you see in Ender's Game than what you see in Hunger Games. The reason I think that people make the comparison is because they're using lower tech levels. So, some minor plot details there. I hope that doesn't bother you, but we are going to go ahead and move into the spoiler section where I do the highlights, and then we'll be wrapping up the video. So, highlights. I do definitely want to highlight the reveal, the truth of the Martian society and all of that Darrow experiences early in part 2. I definitely enjoyed that as a plot element. I honestly wasn't expecting it. I kind of suspected that there was more going on than obviously our character knew, but not that much, you know. There's always expected to be some secret world-changing revelation in this kind of story, but just not to that extent. Me cutting into later in the video where I realized that there's actually 2 fridgings in this book. I forgot about the second one, which kind of goes to show the problem with fridging is that when it happens, it is not about the woman being killed. It's hard to forget that somebody dies, but when you're doing a fridging, it's kind of easy. Also, as much as I criticized it earlier, I actually did enjoy the way that Eo's death scene was handled. And like I said at the beginning, there's a spectrum of the more disrespectful ones and the less disrespectful ones. They're all worthy of criticism because of the way that foraging permeates our society in our literature and storytelling. But I did enjoy the way that it was handled. It was given sufficient gravitas. And a highlight as well that goes right along with that is the way that that particular death does stay with our main character throughout the entire book. There's at no point did I think to myself, oh, he just forgot about his dead wife at this point. Like, he always is remembering and thinking of her, and I felt like, for what it is, it was done tastefully. That's my opinion, though. That's my take. If you disagree, I fully respect that, and I hope that you will tell me more about it down in the comments, because I would love to hear your take and have an open, respectful, and honest conversation about this sort of thing. I will delete any comments that are not polite, so to say. Well, I can't think of anything else to highlight, but I do just want to say that I thoroughly enjoyed the experience of reading this book. I found it immensely fun and miserable at the same time, in just the right way. I also want to say that there is a certain story type in this book that is one of my favorite things. I'm always a little bit nerdy for it, which is the kind of surviving out on your own in the wilderness. That sort of, it's, from my understanding, I guess you could make the comparison to Hatchet. I actually haven't read that book, but that sort of striking it out, trying to figure out the resources, gathering the team, earning the respect of the people. I really enjoy that sort of plot, and that might be a significant part of what won me over to this book. Although I will say that the next book does some very different things, and I still thoroughly enjoyed that one. So look forward to the review of Golden Sun coming out soon. I haven't gotten to book 3 yet. I will be getting to it soon. I will let you know when that video is going up. I want to thank you for watching the video. If you would like to leave a comment down below, like the video, these things help me spread the channel, which I'm really working on. It's hard. Also, if you don't mind subscribing, and you can follow me over on Instagram and Twitter with The Light in My Library is my handle there. I post my upcoming schedule and just chat with other nerds on there. I also have a Twitch where I stream a few times a week at The Light in My Man Cave. I'm currently playing Hollow Knight if you're interested in watching that. Also, sorry for the long break in between videos. I've been dealing with a lot of things in my life. Had a loss of a family member this last month, and so I'm just trying to kind of stumble through as I get back into the groove. So I appreciate your guys' patience, and I will see you all next time.